Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the Tango Banter with myself, Yelizaveta. It is so nice to have you with me today. I decided that I would talk about something that someone else brought up to me recently. After my last podcast episode, I got a message from a friend who said that for them, when they were a beginner, their most difficult struggle was self-doubt. And that now, years later, they're still struggling with it. And it's affecting their tango experience. And this is not the first time I've heard this kind of sentiment, especially since after COVID, when we all started going back to tango, there were many people who said, I don't remember how to dance. I have forgotten everything. I'm a beginner again. I don't know anything. And for many people who did go back, that was the sentiment. And then there were a lot of people who didn't go back to tango and have not come back because of this feeling of self-doubt. So I thought it deserves some time to dig into this real and very present experience for many people, including myself, as those of you heard from those of you who listened last week. My podcast was all about what it was like for me as a beginner and how much resistance and self-doubt I felt in my first experiences in tango. And there are some things that I now understand about this experience of self-doubt, because obviously my motto for this show is what happens in tango happens in life. So when we're talking about self-doubt, we're not just talking about tango, right? It seeps into every other part of our lives. And because of that, I feel it's a really worthwhile topic, even though we don't really talk about it too much at length, and we don't really know what to say when somebody says to you, I really suck. I really don't remember anything. Your response is, but you're great. No, you do. You know what I mean? It's like the exchange is kind of awkward because the person saying the thing doesn't really necessarily want to be negated, but the person receiving it is like, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, yeah, actually, you don't. So I think it's a very real experience at a milonga, at a social dance. And I want to suggest a few strategies to deal with this emotion, whether you are feeling it yourself or you're witnessing someone else go through that and how to deal with that. So I first want to emphasize something that is actually pretty obvious, but I think when we get carried away with self-doubt, we forget this fact. And that is that everyone feels it. Every single person feels it. I cannot tell you how many times I have been so surprised to hear that someone that I respected, I looked up to and admired, experienced self-doubt. And it was humbling and also encouraging. And of course, there are degrees of self-doubt, right? I'm not saying that everyone feels the same kind of self-doubt. And I experience self-doubt all the time. I mean, I'm here recording a podcast and anticipating that people will listen to it and make up their mind about it. Like there's a lot of potential there for self-doubt. So it's not like I don't feel it, but there's different degrees of it. And one thing I've observed, and I'm curious, those of you listening to this, if you have observed the same thing or whether your experience was different, that for the most part, the most self-doubt I hear from women. I hear so many self-criticisms and self-judgment, mostly centering around this idea of I am not good enough. I don't know enough. I haven't mastered this thing enough. I haven't gotten my technique down enough. And it's interesting also that of the people that express the most self-doubt, those are really the people who should be feeling the best about their dance. Honestly, it's so strange. I encounter this a lot when I teach as well, that the people who are actually the most, I would say, advanced according to what they're after, right? If they're social dancers, then they're advanced in that. If they're more into the performance track, they're, that's where they're advanced. So I'm not really saying advanced is a general sort of ideal state that everybody should want. But it's been my observation that the people who have the most knowledge and have the most care and attention, and they really put in a lot of significant effort, those are the people that a lot of times feel the worst about their dance. They really cannot believe that they're as good as other people think. So they're usually very resistant to compliments. They'll brush it off. And I used to do this myself too. It's a really good sign of self-doubt taking hold of your mind when somebody pays you a compliment and the first thing you do is think, oh, they're just being nice. Or, well, I'm lucky. They don't really know. They don't know the real me. The real me is actually terrible. So I definitely, that's very familiar script in my mind. So I find it's kind of comical that I'll dance with somebody who is just a, lovely dancer, feels amazing, and they'll be so self-deprecating, and they'll criticize their dance. And if I offer them a compliment, they'll brush it off, or say, oh, you're too nice, or oh, well, I'm still working on this. It's not, very rarely am I just gonna get like, thank you. But then this has happened also a lot of times, that I'll dance with somebody that is not very technically advanced, somebody that I might not actually enjoy dancing with. They're not really my preference, and I might have a certain level of judgment, like, oh, this person doesn't really know what they're doing, or their technique is lacking in some way. And those people, again, not all of them, obviously my experience is limited to my own, very subjective perspective, but so much of this happens where they are so confident, they are so into themselves, and they really love what they're doing, and they're sort of like ignorance is bliss. state, their innocence is sort of jarring, and you can't really argue with that. I mean, what do you say? Like, no, you really shouldn't feel this good about yourself because you're not that good. That sounds terrible. Right? You can't really do. You can have your own opinion and judgment, and we all do. We all have preferences. But ultimately, it's admirable to see how much those dancers are having, how much fun those dancers are having, right? They're out there, they're dancing, they're having a good time, they're going home totally like satisfied, because a lot of times they get what they want. And again, that's my perception. Whereas other dancers who I think deserve to feel really good and who really should be confident, they're leaving and they have this sort of like cloud over their head. And typically what ends up happening too is that when dancers have a lot of self-doubt, they tend to not put themselves out as much, or take a chance on a new dance, or even pass up an opportunity. I know for me, I've had to deal with so much self-doubt, and I've sabotaged so many opportunities to dance with somebody because I just couldn't fathom that they wanted to dance with me, and it's just so interesting. I'll tell you a personal experience of mine that I think will resonate with a lot of you. So one year I had the pleasure of dancing with a professional dancer who was in town teaching, and I really admired this person, and I got to dance with them, and it was a real treat. And so I had established some sort of like rapport with them, and I felt like, okay, I have an in. Now, like I can feel more confident that I'm going to get another dance with this person if I were to see them at another event. So I ended up going to a festival where they were there performing, and this one night I go to the Milonga Saturday night, and all I can think of in my mind is whether I'm going to have a dance with this person or not. Like, this is all I want. I just want it. It's irrational. Not only do I want it because I want to prove to myself that I'm good enough for this person to want to dance with me, but there's also a little bit of this ego, like, oh, I want to dance with them so that other people see me dancing with them. And how cool is that? And, like, I'm not saying it's a very mature thought to have, but it's there. I think everybody goes through that. It feels good to dance with the pro, It's a rite of passage, I guess, in a certain way. So I go to this Milonga, and I do the weirdest thing, right? So at this point, I'm actually friends with this person and their partner. Like, I have every opportunity to, like, sit at a table with them, say hello to them. But instead, I don't want to appear too eager. So I sit at a table that is literally the furthest table away from this person's table. Like I don't know why I chose this. Not across from them, not next to them. Like, there's all these places I could sit, but I sit in the one that's furthest away. And what's going through my mind is I don't want to appear too eager, and I don't want to be rejected. And so I don't know what was going through my mind. So the whole night I'm sitting there, and my mind is fixated on getting a dance with this person. And I think I do try. Like, I remember having it on my mind, trying to capacea them, but I don't really know. But the long story short, I didn't get to dance with them. I was there the whole night, and I had a great time ultimately, especially after they left. because finally I was like, all right, I can move on now. But I saw them the next night. And this person that I so wanted to dance with and didn't get to dance with them, we were saying hello to each other. And they say to me, where were you? I was looking for you all night and I could not find you. And I cannot tell you the light bulb that went off for me at that moment. I was so grateful to have heard this, because the struggle from the night before was still very real in my mind, and there were all these emotions about self-worth and skill and whatever. And I just, when you like someone and you do the complete opposite, I do that. I don't know if some of you can relate to this, but it's like, I like somebody, so I must pretend I don't like them because it's too vulnerable to show that, to be obvious, So it was a big lesson for me, because really all of my decisions that I made that night came from this overly dominating feeling of self-doubt, insecurity, lack of trust, lack of belief in myself, like all of these things, fear of rejection. And there's different degrees of this, yeah? And I have to say that of all the things that I consider to be the tango killers, tango energy wet blankets, self-doubt, I think, is right there at the top. It really can break you and make you leave tango, either leave for the night or leave in general. Like, there are certain situations where the self-doubt gets so big that it completely colors your reality, and you're perceiving things that are happening and interpreting them as if they're real. And it's hard to even catch what you're perceiving, like when you sustain a rejection, a Kappa rejection, and you immediately think, oh, it's because that person doesn't like me. It's because I'm not a good dancer. Like, that already is that little seed. And then you multiply that, and then suddenly you think you're terrible at all of it and you don't understand anything. And then that makes you more it makes you more prone to look for proof of that. And so something else will happen that's like proves you to be right. And I first started really realizing this power of our minds when I was in Buenos Aires, because when I was there for 6 months, I was dancing so much. I was exhausted, and it really came down to that I needed to be in a really good, solid state of mind before going to the Milonga, because if I wasn't, it wasn't even worth my time going. Like, I remember around 5 or 6 o'clock at night, if I found myself to feel really negative and bitchy and kind of like, I don't like anyone around me and I'm having a problem with every person I'm around. If I felt that way, I would decide not to go, because I could not be rescued from that state by anyone else. And I, at that time, did not understand how to overcome that in myself and what to do when I, feel this way. So if you are prone to feeling self-doubt, don't feel alone. Don't feel so isolated, because everyone feels self-doubt. And it's a serious thing to feel it, right? It can have power over you, but I will tell you a couple of ways you can deal with it. And I have tested and worked with this for quite some time, and I find that it works. So I'll offer this up to you to try, and I'm curious how it works for you. Let me know. You can always reach out to me on social media at I'm So Tango. So the first thing that I want to impart is that the goal for us as people and as tango dancers is not to get to a place where we don't feel self-doubt. So that should be a relief, because I think for some of us, especially those of us prone to always try to better ourselves and perfect our technique and work on ourselves forever. Like there's always something to fix. Like when we have an attitude like that, feeling self-doubt can be a symptom of lack of character or lack of self-development. I know I felt that way for a long time. I felt like, well, I'm considered an advanced dancer, but I can't be an advanced dancer if I feel this self-doubt. Advanced dancers don't feel self-doubt like this. Professional dancers don't feel self-doubt. But the reality is everybody feels self-doubt. It is a very human thing to feel, and it's always going to be there. It's going to take on different qualities based on your experience. You'll always feel more self-doubt when you're trying something new, something unfamiliar, or something that you're scared of. And then the trick is to stay with it. The trick is to not run away or fight it or try to erase it or try to cover it up, but just to acknowledge that it's there. And I know the discomfort of that is, it's like, I don't know, it's very uncomfortable. There's no doubt that that's not something that we like feeling. But the more you feel it, the less of an edge it becomes. It's like with rejection, especially for, those of you who are starting to lead or beginner leaders, and you have that feeling of like, oh my God, what if they say no? And the first few times they say yes, you're like, oh, phew, thank God, okay, another yes, another, I didn't get rejected. And then you finally get a no, and you're like, oh, I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to be rejected. And so you have that shock, and it feels terrible, and you're just like, oh, I'll never dance with that person again, and I am a bad dancer, and I need 10 more years of private lessons and all that. But then if you receive another rejection, and then the rejection kind of like just becomes part of your existence. And of course, this is assuming that you have good percentage of positive experiences too. Like if you're only getting rejected, yeah, there might be something to look at there. But if it's like, from time to time you get a rejection here and there, it stops being so acute. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's just kind of like this, like a little uncomfortable sensation for a few seconds, and then you just kind of move on. Because you get used to it. You get used to feeling it. So it's the same way with self-doubt. When you first feel it, it's overwhelming. And you want to run, and you want to hide, and you want to make it so that it never happens again. But I encourage you to do the opposite and seek out opportunities to feel self-doubt almost as like your own test of stamina. How long how long can I be in this discomfort? And you don't have to be in it in any particular way. You don't have to like last with flying colors. You just have to stick it out, you know? So like I remember dancing with with another, very accomplished dancer that I really admired, and I was so nervous to dance with them that I started shaking, and I was like literally trembling so hard that they looked at me and were like, "Are you okay?" And all I could say was, "Yes, I really don't know what's happening." And I danced the rest of the tanda, even though it was the most terrifying experience because I'm like, I have so much adrenaline. I can't stop shaking. I'm convinced that I'm not dancing well. This person's never going to dance with me again. But I survived. I finished that tanda. And to me, it's like, okay, another one down. Like, you just survived this. Good for you. Moving on. You don't need anything else. So I suggest you don't shy away from the experience, because it does get easier. And especially as you experience and you say to yourself, this happens to others, I'm not the only one. I mean, chances are the person you're dancing with probably on some level feels the same. Just maybe not in the same degree or in the same way, but there is a resonance there. You're not alone in this kind of experience. Now, here is the remedy that I use for myself whenever I have my self-doubt, and I fully endorse it to be used by everyone else as well. And that is, you got to focus on something, right? You got to take your mind off of it. So you're feeling the self-doubt, and in that moment, you have a choice. The self-doubt can take over and feed on itself and amplify and get bigger and bigger until it consumes you and you have a panic attack. Been there, done that, right? So that's possible. So there needs to be something that you practice when you're experiencing self-doubt that will be the medicine, that will be a tool for you to call forth, like your shield in battle, right? And that is the remedy, is the thing that you are really after, which is experiencing the music. What you're really after, what we're all after, is this deep, concentrated union with the music. We want to feel transported to another place. And so when I start feeling self-doubt and I start questioning all of my prior decisions in life, and that I don't know anything, all of that, like, in that moment, I do my best to shift my focus to the music. And what do I mean by shifting your focus to the music? I like to imagine that the song is a soundtrack to a movie, and I am the star of this movie. So the music is playing, and I am like Fred Astaire on the stage of life, playing out, acting out the character of this song. This is how I imagine it. And I know other people have similar experiences, so I'm not sure whether for you it's exactly this, but find your equivalent to it, because it's there. We're all after that. We're after that tango high. What is that tango high? What is it? What is that tangasm? It's nothing but our union with the music. And that union with the music is what unifies us to our partner, ultimately. And when you can be present to your self-doubt, acknowledge that, yeah, like, I don't feel confident right now. And in that moment, to submit your energy, to offer up, to release your energy into the music, and to really listen, to maybe sing along in your mind, to make it a goal to illustrate the song, like you're really trying to translate the song. You're serving the song, the tango. That totally puts you into a different state of mind. And I know from experience, whenever I've offered that suggestion to my partners, because I've danced with partners that I can tell they're very nervous, they're shaking, and they're saying things like, "Oh, I'm dancing with you and I'm so nervous and I don't know anything," and I'll say something like, "Oh, just let's just listen to the music. It doesn't matter." Like, that's how whenever I hear these kinds of comments, like, my strategy is not to be like, "Oh, no, don't feel that way. No, you're great. Oh, you're awesome." Like, it doesn't help, really. It doesn't help. That's just, like putting a slight Band-Aid on something that is much more acute. But to just really show the person that you're not even paying attention. You're not even paying attention to their nervousness. It's not even on your radar. Like, I just draw their attention to the music. Like, "Oh, don't you love this song? Don't you, oh, I just love this orchestra." I'll just kind of talk about the music, So when you focus on the music, then it will kind of derail that track. And maybe this also happens, you'll start having a really good time and you're like, "Oh my God, it's working." Oh, but no, I'm actually really bad. And then you're back in the self-doubt, and it, kind of bounces back and forth throughout the tanda. And, this kind of self-doubt where I'm really feeling a lot of nervousness when I'm to dance with someone, I haven't felt that a lot recently. There's a point when, as dancers, we kind of hit our stride, and we kind of know the lay of the land, and we dance with certain types of dancers, and there's a range, but it kind of stays pretty standard. And so it's been a long time since I have felt this way, but the last time I felt it was really interesting to me because I wasn't mad. I wasn't like, I didn't mind feeling it. It was a sign of me going somewhere new. That's how I took it. And in the end, I think, like, that's the big takeaway, that self-doubt is perhaps just a sign, a symptom of you going a little bit further than you're used to, a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And the self-doubt is there to kind of protect you from the danger of some kind, And so I have been, dancing for a long time. And from time to time, I have a chance to dance with the visiting teacher whenever I'm at a festival or something. And that is always really fun, but I don't necessarily feel that nervous anymore. But last year, for the first time, I initiated a cappucceo to dance with the woman who was the professional dancer, so the partner of the main teacher. And I was very nervous. I was so nervous. I really wanted to dance with her. And I was too chicken. I was too chicken to capaceo her. Her husband had to tell me. Her husband had to tell me that she wants to dance with me. And I capaceoed her. And I tell you, I took that embrace and I felt that shake. And I felt that nervousness of like, oh my God, all I know is 5 moves and she is such a pro and she gets to dance with him and he's an amazing dancer and who am I and I don't really know anything. And I mean, it was all right there. It was all there. And I honestly, it had been so long since I felt that I started kind of laughing to myself. I was like, wow, there it is. It's like fresh and clean and like spotless. It was just like right there waiting to be had. And I have to tell you, I couldn't, I couldn't give into it. Here I am dancing with this badass woman. Like, I gotta give her a good time. And I did. I was happy that I did, but of course I didn't dance as well as I thought I would or I thought I could. Of course, I was not satisfied with the quality of my dance. Absolutely not. But I had a good time and I focused on the music. That was my mantra. Just listen to the music, follow the music, follow the music, follow the music, follow the music, So that's what I have to share on that. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And yeah, just to recap, I think it's good to recap at the end. Remember, if you're feeling self-doubt, everybody feels it. It's real and it's justifiably scary. And it can take over and it can make you do things that you don't want to do or that you would not do if you weren't feeling it. So it is worthwhile and you don't have to run away from it. You don't have to hide from it. You don't have to cover it up because the whole skill, and that's what tango really is good at, is teaching us to be okay with the discomfort, to learn, to hold your ground, to stay steady. And the way that you stay steady when you feel this ongoing onslaught of criticism and doubt in your mind is to focus on the music, to become your version of Fred Astaire and dance your heart out. And I will add this one last bit. And please, I want you to really, really promise me that you'll do this, okay? When you do all of this, I bet, I'm willing to put money on it, that when you really put your heart into the music, at the end of that song, your partner might very well compliment you and say, wow, that was so powerful. That was amazing. And they'll praise you. They'll praise your dance. And in that moment, promise me, you will take that in and you will say, thank you. And you will just take it in and just make eye contact, smile, take it in, really sit with it and really appreciate that. Because one of the ways self-doubt continues to have such a hold on us is that we don't allow ourselves to feel good. We don't trust it. And so I encourage you to take it in and really appreciate the compliment, the sentiment of the person who's sharing that with you, and appreciate your own ability to stay with the discomfort and still dance. Okay? So thanks so much for being with me today. I look forward to our next banter. Until then, ciao.